Good morning, this is Pam, Flower Patch Farmhouse, and this morning it is the week of June 4th. This is Monday, June 4th, and we are out by the greenhouse getting started. Not much has changed right here, still my staging area for many things, but my iris are all starting to bloom and putting on the show. Also, my Cecile Bruner climbing rose is blooming over there on the chicken house. And around that obelisk, I have my tomatoes, several heirloom tomatoes. I think one's called 1884 or 85, and one is Paul Robeson or something. It's supposed to be really tasty. And more irises blooming. I'll walk over here. Let me see if I can do this without being too shaky. I have foxgloves beginning to open up. Walk along. More foxgloves in this corner, along with the iris. And here's my Canterbury bell getting taller. I need to stake it. I think it's starting to lean towards the sun. Oh, I have a Sweet William opening up down there next to the lavender, which is full of buds. Looks like the alliums are finishing up, and I'll chop them back pretty soon. And there's a nice foxglove right next to the path, which soon that will get chopped back, pulled up, because it's kind of in the way. Well, I don't know. Not really. And there's my poppies in the pathway. I couldn't pull them up. Once they're done blooming, I'll go ahead and take them out of the path. And a really pretty foxglove next to this obelisk. And down there, actually, one of my clematis came up, but the other ones aren't showing any signs of coming up, but they're down there somewhere. And I also planted cucumber seeds in there. I need to get that good and wet so they come up. More iris. I was thinking my ranunculus would not come up, and then all of a sudden they appeared. And there they are. This is the season for foxgloves, so they're all putting on their show. I put some of the dahlias out, so they're coming up pretty nice. It was a good warm couple of days, so it gave them a good start. And there is my Starship Enterprise, the yellow and burgundy iris, one of my favorites. And the Jupiter's beard down there, the red. Also valerian, red valerian. More ranunculus. They're not doing so hot on this side. I think it's a little too dry. I need to put the water on out here. And my Revere, it's slowing down. It just bloomed like crazy. More alliums. This is more poppies. These all reseeded themselves from last year, and they took off so well I just didn't have the heart to yank them out. There's one down there already blooming. It's kind of on the smaller side, but they are a little bit crowded. I could thin them out a bit. So we'll walk down the path. And over here is my hummingbird bath. It's not going right now because it's solar and the sun's not hitting it. And I have a post on the website on how I put that together. It was really simple. Not only do the hummingbirds love it, but so do the bees, and all the other birds really seem to be enjoying it too. And so far that's the back garden. The only things blooming, well, here's a calibrachoa I just put in the ground that overwintered last winter, and it was from last summer. It's a pretty purple one. And my roses are starting to put on, they've had this really weird beetle that I need to find out how to eradicate, because it's really done a number on some of my roses, making all the little buds holey and not that pretty. And here we are by the studio cottage, and my wheelbarrow there. I got to haul some pine needles to mulch with. Thankfully, my neighbor raked his all up, so they're in piles, and it's pretty easy for me just to grab them with a pitchfork. And my side garden is in full bloom too. Well, the California poppies are closed right now. They close when it gets cool and at night. And here is one of my favorite iris. It's a real pretty brown. It's not coming across on the camera as brown as it is. But that's a huckleberry something. I can't remember the full name. And over here by my barrels, the dianthus. These came back from last year. They really love this spot. They're thick. I have a tree peony under here. I showed you before. I really need to cut this pear tree back, because down there's my tree peony, and it hasn't bloomed yet, and I think because it gets too much shade from that tree. And the road there, and this is beside my studio. As we're walking up the path on the side yard, here is my Warsaw Nike clematis that I've done several posts on. One, how to propagate by layering, how to prune it to get top to bottom blooms, and then last year I just whacked it off at the ground and it came back even thicker. So it's another way to prune in the fall, is just to whack it all the way down, and it forces more shoots up, and the blooms are huge. Let me see if I can get my hand over there. You see my hand? That's as big as my hand. It's really pretty. It's a deeper purple than is showing across on this camera. I can see in the viewfinder, it's just not showing the depth of color. More iris, some really pretty ones. I love this kind of a salmon pink with lavender purple. The contrasting colors. More are about to open. There's another of my Starship Enterprise. It's doing very well here too. And you see there's one of those little green beetles in there. I need to get rid of those. They're not doing good things to my roses and other plants. Look at that black one, that black iris down there. And my peonies, right there between those two iris in the middle, are about ready to open up. Lots more. And there is my bell of walking clematis. It's climbing up this climbing rose. That rose is Dreamweaver, and it's starting to open up too. I have trumpet vine in these barrels. And we're up in the front. And more iris. And other things starting to bloom. I have a sprinkler going because it's been super hot and things have gotten dried out. And I turned on my soaker hose this morning. It was a new type and it had split. That's not good after 1 year. I've had others here that they've lasted for 10 years. But I will tape it up and continue to use it. Oh, let's say my butterfly bush is coming up. Now I have to trim mine back, and I'm going to do a post soon on how you take care of butterfly bush in heavy snow areas, because I've heard other garden bloggers say, oh, you don't trim it back until spring, and that just won't work here. And I have pictures of what happens when I don't prune it back to the ground in fall. More iris. Oh, I have a lupin out here. I have some fuchsia pink seeds that I need to get in the ground. The Russell lupins really do well here. In fact, they reseed so readily I have to dig them out. And there is a hydrangea. I think that's Zinfandel. It's very much like Strawberry Sundae. It's pink and white, the panicle hydrangea. And That is a Roseanne geranium, hardy geranium, which it just thrives here too. It gets quite tall. And this is a white rose, a miniature rose, and it is a ground cover, and it will root wherever it touches the ground very easily. And I have several of these. I have one that I'm using along the front wall as kind of like a hedge. It kind of drapes over the wall. This is my Eden Rose, or Pierre de Ronsard, however it is pronounced. And it's pushing over the arbor. Looks like it's gotten eaten a little bit by those beetles too, so I need to get a handle on those little beetles. Sometimes I'll have some issues in spring, and then as summer goes on, they disappear. Now the ferns here, these are wild to the area, and they come up all the time, and I usually am ahead of them where they're not choking out everything else. And I have, this is Darcy Bussell is a David Austin rose. It's being swamped by the hardy geranium that's called Tiny Monster. And I need to dig that up and plant it somewhere else. It was supposed to be a ground cover that grew close to the ground, but here it is so hardy that it swamps my roses. And this is a delphinium. I have posts all on delphiniums, how to grow from seed, how to propagate. This is an LD Braithwaite David Austin rose. I used to have all of these type, the LD Braithwaites, all along this front bed, and it made a hedge of red roses, but that same freeze that killed my other roses kind of zapped some of these. A few survived, like the one I just showed you, or I should say one or two survived, and the rest didn't. Let's see. I have to show you this iris. This is awesome color. I love that. And these alliums are getting just like the ones in back, finishing up their time. There's all my irises in the front, putting on their show. And this bed I just planted. I was going to do zinnias, and I told you I was going to do zinnias, but I had started so many dahlias and I didn't have anywhere to put them. So they ended up in this flower bed. I see the sun is coming through the trees a little bit. And this all along here where the ferns are, that is that white rose all along that front wall. It goes all the way across. That's one of those roses. And so I would say it's going about 8 feet. And I just trained it along there. I have some rebar about 2 foot high, and I've tied it along there so it stays in that towards the wall and not going over into the bed. And it just makes a good ground cover hedge. I have to whack on it all the time, but it blooms. It is so loaded with blooms. All summer long it blooms. So my peonies and my new Bobo hydrangeas are down in here with the clematis that are blooming. Clematis, I always change around what I'm saying. Who knows? And a bucket of coffee grounds I get from the local coffee shop. And more ferns taking over. I need to whack them back. I'm thinking now that I may do the zinnias in this bed where all these ferns are, instead of over where I put the dahlias. And I have a rhododendron over there doing great. A lot of green here, but it's just mostly ferns and stuff. But they still look pretty, so I let them be until I'm ready to do something with that bed. And that is basically a walk around my garden the first week of June.